U.S. Supreme Court decisions, USCIS and Immigration Court updates. Tonight, we're going to be discussing the most recent, interesting, important immigration news. Thank you very much, guys, for joining. My name is Alina Shaltsova. I'm an immigration attorney from New York. I use my social media to update you with regard to the most important immigration developments in the United States, and of course, to answer your guys' questions live. So if this is your first time, welcome. Please say hello. Let me know where you're watching from. Share this stream. And don't forget to type up your questions so that in the end, we're going to be discussing what issues you are interested in. I'm going to be answering your guys' questions live. So, a lot of different updates today to talk about. Don't be shy. And let's start. Well, why don't we start with USCIS updates? There are many. One such point, for example, is that USCIS announced recently using their social media that they're going to be partnering with ICE to use advanced analytics in targeting criminal aliens. I suspect that they talk about AI that they're going to be employing, but also about the fact that whatever information you are submitting to USCIS in terms of your criminal arrests and criminal history in general will be used now directly by ICE as well. Generally speaking, any federal agency can share information that you provide to them with other federal agency, apart from perhaps certain protected applications like asylum. But here we see that, according to this official announcement, this cooperation will be very close in an ongoing basis. It means that you have to expect at this point that it will be very quick and ICE is going to get information from USCIS immediately. Why is it important? Well, because if you do have criminal history, you may be subject to deportation, right? You may be deportable, you may be disqualified from certain benefits. Sometimes there are interesting situations when you are not inadmissible based on the criminal history, but you may be deportable afterwards. So I guess that's why. And also, perhaps if you are filing for some humanitarian reliefs where your criminal history perhaps not the key point of the application, but you do share this information with USCIS, now they will be immediately transferring it to ICE. That's what I took from this announcement. Maybe there is something else going on there, but I think that's exactly what they're saying. Another very important piece of information that USCIS reminds us about by posting it on their, again, social media is that for those of you who have to register, remember that alien registration situation? For those of you who have to register, you need to be mindful that not only you will have to be registering with USCIS, but also you will have to appear for fingerprints. And if you fail to appear, if you don't show up, they will, the government may potentially sanction you in form of criminal prosecution for failure to follow the registration rules. This is something very important that you need to know about. Who has to register? We discussed on multiple occasions. Those are typically people who crossed the border with the United States and never filed for anything, never been fingerprinted. Sometimes kids who were under 14 years old when parents took care of their visa applications, and now they turned 14 and they have to register, they have to provide their fingerprints. Certain visitors from Canada, those who crossed the land border with the United States, and hence they were not issued visas or any stamps in their passports that they are actually visiting. And per USCIS announcement, certain DACA applicants and TPS applicants, I guess those who filed and didn't, were not called yet for any type of fingerprints, biometrics. Those are the people, those are the groups of people, right? Well, this is what I wanted to share with you with regard to USCIS. Now, let's talk about a little bit about immigration courts, another very important update. For those of you who are in immigration courts had administratively closed cases, your cases now will be rescheduled for master hearings, as a rule, for master hearings. So even if the judge previously took the case off the calendar or simply granted administrative closure, is expect to be called to court. Whether you have DACA, you have TPS, you're waiting for your cancellation and removal application, your case was administratively closed, please note that your case will be rescheduled. For those of you who were scheduled for web internet-based hearings, you may receive a new notice saying that now your hearing is going to be in person. Very important to know that. Well, guys, thank you very much for your hearts if you're watching me on TikTok, and your likes from YouTube and Facebook. So now you know that courts are activating old cases. Now is the time to prepare for those cases. If you had asylum that you didn't really like and you chose to administratively close your case, now would be the time to revisit that asylum filing, see if you can work on your case to make it stronger. If you have to face the trial, you know that now is the time to start working on the case. Maybe it was a cancellation or removal case you were waiting. Please make sure to discuss it with your attorney. By the way, a lawyer who administratively closed your case is still your attorney of record unless they file that motion to withdraw at some point. Okay, so that's very important to know. That's going to be the lawyer who you're going to turn to asking for help. And finally, very important update for today, for tonight, happened yesterday. This is the United States Supreme Court decision from the highest court of the United States about Trump's administration ability to use ancient law from 1792, if I'm not mistaken, Alien Enemies Act, to deport people. You may know, maybe you saw this already in the news, but the United States Supreme Court basically stated that the Trump's administration can use that law. And the only thing that they noted, and I highlight it now here on my screen, if you're watching me on YouTube or Facebook, they stated that you do need to give a notice to the person who's going to be removed under this law, so they have a reasonable opportunity to present arguments against the fact that the government determined that they fall under the category of persons for whom, against whom rather, this particular procedure may be applied. And that's that the majority. There were tons of dissents. It's not an easy opinion from the United States Supreme Court, but here we see a win in favor of Trump's administration. Who would think that, what is it, 200-year-old law is going to be used now to deport people out of the United States? And in a separate opinion, the United States Supreme Court also stated that the Trump administration does not have to immediately comply with the judge's order to return the individual who was wrongly deported out of the United States. And by the way, the prosecutor who agreed that that person should not have been deported seems to have been fired. So we have a very tough situation going on. I do explain to my client a very important point that judges, prosecutors, they are employees of the government. They're not independent, and they have to follow orders of the Attorney General. And if they don't, they will be fired. So between their personal beliefs and the orders, what do you think the majority of them is going to choose? That's just a question for out there. You tell me what you think, all right? You tell me what they're going to choose. Now, guys, if you have your questions, please type them up so I'll be able to help you out and answer them. I think there was one more little thing I wanted to share with you. This relates to actually a very important thing. It relates to the fact that Trump's administration suspended a very important for immigrants office, Ombudsman's office. If you had a stuck case, if you went for an interview and you did not receive the decision on the case for a very long time, if the government stated they lost your file, you would turn to that office, and it was like a middleman who would help you to resolve your stuck case, the issue that you had with USCIS. And that office was called USCIS Ombudsman's Office. It was like an advocate before the USCIS for people, for customers of USCIS, people who filed for different benefits. That office is now suspended. There is nowhere to go apart from your congressman. So now we are left only with a congressman. Okay, that's the situation that we have. Very sad news. Another very sad announcement is that lots of migrant-based organizations that were designed to help immigrants, including victims of human trafficking, now are defunded, and they cannot, they no longer can uh, service people, and those of you who couldn't afford an attorney, you guys are left without one. You will either have to find money and go to a private lawyer, find free lawyer, private attorney. Some of us sometimes take pro bono cases, or you're out of options because those organizations, a lot of them are defunded. They don't have the money to work anymore, and that's very, very sad, of course, because I know for a fact many of you relied on those free services. Now, if you guys have questions, I'll be very happy to answer them. Why don't I start with my TikTok followers? Thank you guys for joining. Don't forget to follow so we're not going to get lost in the web of lives and news and all other things that we encounter online. Hi, Norman. Is the new visa restriction impact I-130 petition also? Which particular visa restrictions you're referring to? Please let me know. I've heard this visas from South Sudan were revoked because South Sudan refused to accept a person who is actually not their citizen. That's a very interesting, that's a very interesting development. They stated that it was a case of mistaken identity. The person who the United States government wanted to deport to South Sudan was not from South Sudan, and that's why South Sudan didn't take him. But the government of the United States said, no, we are not taking that. And now we're going to revoke visas for everybody who is from South Sudan. I think they gave them till April 10 or something to resolve this. But we'll see what's going to happen. So I truly do not know if it's going to affect I-130s. I-130 is a petition, right? But visas, immigrant visas that are based on I-130 may be affected. If there is some other situation with some other country, you let me know, okay? What is it we're discussing? Hi, Anna. I have idiotically applied for TPS late last day because of UTS time zone. It shows next day. Ouch. All right, Anna, hopefully you'll be fine, because what happens here is that they should take the time zone where you're at the time when you're filing, right? So if I'm filing documents from New York, my 9 o'clock will be earlier than for somebody from California. All right. So hopefully you'll be okay. We'll see what's going to happen. All right. Depending on the time zone. But you also mentioned that you were late. I guess Anna means that you are from Ukraine filing for TPS, right? Oh, Anna. You also can ask, by the way, for an exception. Let's say you did file late, right? Then you can ask them to accept the late filing. So that's a possibility. I'm just trying to check the date exactly when you were supposed to file. And I was correct. I think it's April 19th, not anything else, 2025. That's what you missed. All right. So we need to first of all determine if you really missed the deadline. Okay. If there is any room to argue that you actually didn't miss it, depending on the time zone where you're at. But if we cannot argue in good faith that you met the deadline. Then you ask them to forgive you for missing the deadline. That would be the processing, okay, of the arguments that you need to go through to see if you can save your status. Okay. All right. I have a bank withdrawal on the 18th. All right. What matters is when you filed. Okay. So, user 2159. Can I apply for a work permit 2 years after submitting I-45, and how much does it cost? Oh, yes, of course you can. So I understand that you previously submitted form I-485. You never submitted for the work permit at that time, but now you decided that you want that work permit. Yes, you can. Your fee will depend on when exactly you submitted your I-45. It was, I think there is a rule. If you submitted prior to April something 2024, your I-45, then your work permit should be free, okay? If after a certain date, then you will have to pay the fee for it. So again, not a super difficult situation. You need to have your I-45 receipt, open USCIS website, and see what they said about the fees, and you'll be fine. You should be able to apply for it. Can a green card travel to Africa? Sure. I mean, you may have to have a passport. You may need to have a visa and a passport and a visa to go to Africa. Africa is a huge continent. What country in Africa would you like to visit? Right. So whatever, depending on the country, you reach out to the consulate of that country in the United States and you say, listen, these are the documents that I have. I have a green card and I have passport of my ABC country. Do I need to have a visa to visit you? Right? People forget that Africa is not a country. It's a huge continent, and actually, I think it's one of the largest one. Maybe only Eurasia is bigger than Africa altogether, but I'm not really sure. I know that there is a problem on the maps. Africa as a continent portrayed much smaller than it should be, creating this deceitful, false impression that it's not as large as it is. And I know, like, people from Africa, they know about that because, I have lots of friends and, we discuss that. Can I apply for citizenship with petty offense exception within the statutory period? You should be able to, but please consult with an attorney. Why? Because there is something called unlawful acts. So if the USCIS cannot pin on you anything else, if your offense is too small, if otherwise you're good, they may say, well, how about unlawful act? Unlawful act is anything that they want to say they don't like about you. So just be careful. Previously, we were very successful, no issues, but now we are in certain different times. You have to be very careful and triple check yourself, okay? Hi, Rescheduled 76. I filed for VAWA in November of 2024. Got prima facie with my son as derivative. His EAD was approved 2 weeks ago, but still waiting on mine. Any idea what could be for the delay? Don't worry about it. If you qualify for VAWA, very often it happens that family members who filed at the same time receive their work permits or travel authorizations at different times. It's not a big deal. 2 weeks delay is not a huge delay. Honestly, nothing to worry about yet at this time. All right? Nothing to worry about yet. I wouldn't be stressed out about that. All right, let's see. Supreme Court blocked reinstatement of federal workers. Right. So some of the decisions by the U.S. Supreme Court is against Trump's administration, but here we discuss immigration situations, right? And unfortunately for the immigration community, what's happening is that we're not winning yet, guys. Okay, we're not winning yet. We'll see what's gonna happen, but so far we do not win. Migrants who entered the United States by CBP-1 app stripped of legal status. Not all of them. Some, yes. Some people from Ukraine received erroneous messages about their status being terminated. So it depends really on how you entered, what you're doing. If you filed for anything, if you filed for asylum, they cannot take that away from you. And most people who entered by CBP1 app, they filed for asylum already because they were placed in removal proceedings, and to remain in the United States, they would have to, have something going for them. Otherwise, they would have been deported a long time ago. So typically, they have something going on. All right. All right. Let's see. Hey, MJ Solo just got denied for I-130 family petition with stepdad. Is it better to file a motion to reopen or better to reconsider? I think both. So you can file a motion to reopen and reconsider. Reconsider means that you basically argue that USCIS made error in law, legal error. Motion to reopen is that they missed some important evidence or you have new evidence. All right. So work with an attorney. Hopefully, you guys will be able to address the concerns through that motion and win the case. All right. Hi, Murat. Finally got the grant letter 1 month ago for IG for 42B. How long does it take to get a green card now? Congratulations. That's great, fantastic news. However, you may wait a little bit for your green card. It's supposed to come automatically, but very often it doesn't. So we're talking about the situation when the person finally receives a grant of cancellation removal. And the judge was supposed to send information to USCIS and they were supposed to order the card for you. So if you're worried and time passes and you don't receive the card, what you need to do is you need to call USCIS customer service and let them know about the situation, and then they will give you an appointment and you're going to come in with the judge's decision and your identity documents, and they will take care of the situation. Okay, that's how it works. Hi, Jamie from TikTok. How long does it take to approve I-130 for spouses? Usually within a year. All right, it takes some time. It's not going to be immediate, but usually within a year, unless, as I always say, you're from Yemen. If you're from Yemen, it may take years, too many years. Hi, Tom Tom. I'm documentary qualified. How long for immediate relative interview at Guatemala? Honestly, do not know. I know that the target dates are 90 days to 6 months, but some consulates are so behind, like years behind, like Abu Dhabi. So unfortunately, I won't be able to give you any good information on Guatemala. Thank you guys very much for the gifts. Send me your hearts, guys, on TikTok. Let's see. Thank you for the gifts and the hearts. Hi, Jack. Is PD available for approved VAWA? It depends on the office. All I know that recently all the prosecutors stated they will not be exercising prosecutorial discretion as the matter of policy. So I guess it's going to depend on the situation. I would say probably not, but you may not necessarily need a PD. You may file a motion instead and see what's going to happen. The judge always has a right to grant or deny the motion that you're going to file. So you don't really need prosecutor's consent for anything, okay? Hi, Wiser. If I don't pay my fees at the university as an international student, would that affect my status? You bet. If you don't pay your tuition, they will kick you out and you're going to lose your status very quickly, okay? The good news, perhaps, if you are not placed in removal proceedings during that time, within 5 months of loss of student status, you may file for reinstatement of that status. There is such an opportunity. Again, do not know what's going to happen with this administration, but under the law, you may try that. I never filed medical exam with I-45 based on a T visa. Should I interfile? It's been almost 3 years. Well, they're going to ask for it. Once it's your turn for the T visa to be decided, they will ask you for the medical. And it does take a very long time for them to go through this T visa adjustments. I just received one. I know that it takes a very long time. You may contact your congressman to try to speed up the process, all right? that you should do. Yep, that's you should do. All right. I'm married child in the United States. My citizen mom filing for me. How long will it take? Came on a work visa. All right. So you're married and your citizen mom is filing for you. You will be in a category of married adult children. I believe it's called F3, if I'm not mistaken. It's going to take a long time, depending on the country. I would say at least 10 to 12 years minimum. But if you look at the visibility, sometimes it really expands and the timeline is even longer. And there are years when it shrinks and the timeline gets shorter. But on average, it takes at least 10 to 12 years. Unless you are from the Philippines. If you are from the Philippines, then it's like 30 years, I think. It's a very long time. And all this time, you have to be in lawful non-immigrant status to be able to benefit from that filing if you are trying to adjust status in the United States. Okay. Hi, Dmitry. I've been under final order of deportation for 15 years. Stateless person. Can I be deported to the third country? Do I have any relief or defense from deportation? All right, so you already have an order of deportation. Can you be deported to a third country? Well, I guess the way things are going, you may be, but under certain specific circumstances, they typically don't just grab people and send them to El Salvador, right? Those people they sent to El Salvador, they claimed were members of the gang that was designated as a terrorist organization. And for that reason, they had authority to do that. Stateless people is an interesting topic. If you don't have citizenship, they typically can deport you to the country of your last residence or habitual residence. Okay. Also, what they look at is what country was designated by the prosecutor during your master court hearing at the country of potential removal. So the question is kind of difficult for me to answer without knowing all those details. And you probably, and I do not know your situation, but maybe you received some sort of a deferred action, perhaps, right? So if you did, then prior to physical deportation, the judge has to revoke that. All right. So hopefully, you'll be all right. But I really do not know all the facts to really help you out here. All right. Hiya. So my right date of birth. So what advice Moldova and Russia? Those were okay. So you may be from that Pridnestrovia situation. If they designated those countries as countries for potential removal, then you received a notice and they may deport you there. That's correct. All right. So, Haya, so it seems that you filed something with incorrect date of birth. I'm not sure how this happened that you received this, that you filed with incorrect date of birth. But here's what you need to do. When you filed an application with USCIS and you see that there is a typo, you can place a service request. It's called typographical error request, and you can correct it. So you don't need to refile your case again, if I understood your question correctly. That will be a very easy fix, right? You don't need to worry much about that. Hi, Bama. Documentary qualified since August 5th, waiting for the interview in Abu Dhabi. Oh, forget it. How much longer? 3 years. Abu Dhabi takes forever. I'm telling you right now, guys, if you can change the post, do it. I don't know what the deal is, but it just takes a long time. Thank you guys very much for your hearts on TikTok. Can you give me 1,000 hearts? Let's see. All right. Hi, so I'm a US citizen and I want to file for my brother to come over in the United States. How long does it take for him to come? 12 years? It takes 12 years. It takes a very long time, guys, if you would like to file for your sibling. All right. Takes forever. I do not know why. All right. Hi, Ina. My boyfriend's student visa got terminated today and he graduates in a few weeks. Help, he works so hard. I'm very sorry to hear that. Guys, you need to know that within the within the past week, we received news of a wave of those revocations of the visas. So what's happening is that the government combs through the student visa files, and if they see that you had criminal arrests in the past, they revoke the visas and it terminates service records. So interestingly enough, the way it works, and also it depends on who exactly revoked the visa and why. Revocation of the visa itself should not be revocation of your status, but recently it stopped working this way. If the Department of State revokes the visa, they can place a person in removal proceedings, okay? And then, because the person doesn't have the status, they're technically deportable. You mentioned that there are a couple of weeks before the graduation. I would suggest to discuss this situation with a designated school official. That's the only thing that they can do. And it's a tough situation. American Immigration Lawyers Association have a whole page dedicated to the resources now about this particular issue because they see that there are so many revocations and students are placed in this unfair situation, as you mentioned, right before the graduation. Why don't you connect with an immigration attorney who can submit your case or your boyfriend case, for an example, to AILA, American Immigration Lawyers Association, and maybe they see what they can do? Because I understand they're collecting examples to file some sort of a lawsuit about this situation, right? Because what happens sometimes is that they revoke the visa based on arrest, not even conviction, right? I haven't heard from my lawyers about the H-1B. Should I assume I didn't get the lottery? No. If you have not heard anything, how can you assume that something happened, especially something bad? You have to follow up with them and they have to get back to you. Now, probably lawyers are overwhelmed and very busy, but it's, okay, give them a little bit of time and I'm sure you're going to get the answer, okay? All right, let's see. You're not supposed to get any criminal problems in the United States. All right, you're not supposed to commit any crimes in the United States, but anybody can be accused, sometimes unfairly, don't you think so? And unfortunately, it happens. People get accused unfairly. It can be some sort of a argument situation. It can be a case of mistaken identity. It can be some just bad luck, you know. Some people committed the crimes, of course, and some people didn't. And then they found later totally innocent. Why should they be punished for this mistake that it's not theirs? That's just unfair and violation of their due process rights, right? Because remember, anybody can be accused of anything, especially these days. You know, it seems becoming easier and easier. Hi, Jimmy. We should file I-130 and I-45 together or separate for marriage case while my asylum case pending. It depends on where your case is pending. If it's in court, then you're going to be filing I-130 first, and then you're going to be filing I-45 with the court. If you're not in court, you will be filing your case one step if your spouse is a U.S. citizen. All right. Hi, Mr. Hood. That's a creative name. Please advise if an immigrant who has his work permit, social security, and a state ID can fly. Oh, yes, you can fly. Your work permit is the document that is recognized to be Real ID compliant. I just had a little video recorded for you guys about that. Because remember, there was a lot of fear surrounding the Real ID Act. People were threatened that they will not be able to board the plane. In reality, you know who's not going to be able to board the plane? US citizens. Why? Because in America, US citizens, they don't apply for passports. They don't have passports because they don't really travel internationally a lot compared to maybe other countries. And if they're too slow to update their IDs and they don't want to carry a passport book with them, they will not be able to board the plane because the state ID, if it was issued a long time ago and it's not real ID compliant, they're done. Foreigners, on the other hand, they would have a work permit or they would have even their foreign passport, and that would be enough. So I think this real ID is like total joke. I do not know what happened, why they even had to why what was the purpose behind it, because basically nothing changed. It just they made life harder for US citizens. But from what I recall, US citizens were not the target audience. So something happened, because I guess everybody realized it's just not a workable um, proposal, because nobody really wants to lose customers for the planes. So that's what happened. Hi, Adam. Do I have to memorize all dates for traveling? I have several traveling outside the United States. Yes, you do. But if you're not sure, then you have to also write down, I'm not sure. Because the government of the United States is going to have those dates for traveling. They will have them. So just, um, try to be as accurate as possible, guys, when you give your answers to USCIS on your forms. If you forgot something, you're not sure, on the last page of those forms, you write, I think so, but I'm not sure. All right, you'll be fine. Because they see that you tried, you really try, to comply. But you do not want to say affirmatively yes. And later they're going to say, oh, by the way, you forgot that trip to I don't know, Madagascar. How about that one? And you'll be like, oh, yes, yes. Or Monaco, right? You forgot about it. Hi, Natalie. What are your thoughts on 998? Oh, $1,000 per day fine? Yeah, they're going to implement it. Of course. Yes. So there is news. I published it in my stories that the Trump is going to, his administration is trying to enforce. He didn't make it up, enforce the law that says that people who fail to depart the United States after the final order of removal may be subjected to the civil penalties. Now, imagine you failed to depart 20 years ago. How much money are you going to be owing them? $1,000 a day? You'll never be able to pay that. I don't know. I don't think so. So, how realistic is going to be? I don't think it's going to be realistic. They said they're going to seize the property. I think there will be questions about that. I think maybe if they start it, it won't be retroactive, even though the law existed. But at the same time, like with everything else in the United States, you need to be given a notice, right? So I would think that what they will try to argue that those orders, final orders of removal, they may have those notices already on them. I need to review them to see. If you look at them, you may see that they use standard language, very small font. And some of it does say that you may be subjected to criminal and civil penalties for failing to depart. So if the court says that that's a sufficient notice, yeah, you may be liable for $1,000 a day for each day you fail to depart. And then they're going to start a civil case against you, seizing your property. I mean, that's going to be a lot. But what if there is nothing in your name? If you gifted everything to your spouse and you have a prenup going on, or your other relative, then I guess they won't be able to take it. I do not know. We'll see how it's going to go, guys. It's a very interesting situation. I have to tell you, we're living a very interesting and very stressful times. We heard if you fly within the United States, you will be stopped by ICE and taken. You may be stopped by ICE and taken. You may be. If somehow ICE expresses interest in you at the international airport. Not every airport in the United States is an international airport. There are some local ones. They do not have CBP officers in them. But if you fly, of course, you increase the risk of encounter with the law enforcement. Sure, absolutely. Just like if you drive a car and you violate traffic, rules happens, right? It's a high sum. It's about $2 million, right? Listen, $1,000, $2 million, and they're going to they're going to. I think not many immigrants have $2 million. Do they? How much money? Listen, what do immigrants do with their money usually? They send it home, right? A lot of you send it home to your home country, and not many of you are going to have tons of savings just because you help the family overseas and you have to raise your kids. Some wealthy individuals, of course, those who invested into houses and stuff, properties, real estate may suffer, but at the same time, those more sophisticated, wealthy individuals, they also know how to protect their assets with trusts, with registering companies and things like that, just like rich people do it. So, if you have wealth you're worried about, you may consult with the attorney for trusts and estates. I know nothing about it, and see if there is any opportunity for you to preserve that wealth, just like people from super upper class are doing it. They they register various non-for-profits or family private funds where they put their income into and then designate their own kids as beneficiaries, but technically it's a tax deductible situation for them. So there are a lot of different loopholes that people who do have significant money may use. It's a fact. TikTok knows everything about it. And of course, you may also inquire about those possibilities, right? Why not? The deportation was the notice. Well, the deportation, the order of deportation does have some language, but at different times, different notices, they varied as to what language was there. Notices by the judge may not have that. So it's important to see. So you see how it goes? It's like it creates so many legal issues here. So is it possible? Yes, it's possible. Are they going to be doing it? At least with some people, they will try. All right, I'm sure. Just like with these deportations that we saw now, did they deport everybody to El Salvador? No. They focused on a specific group of people. They tried what's going to happen, and there is a litigation. Now they received the answer. Now they know they can do it, but they can do it only against people who fall under this Alien Enemies Act. Not that many people are going to. Most of the immigrants who are here without status will not fall under this act because they're not members of any specifically designated organizations. All right. How long does a K1 visa stay pending if waiting for passport renewal? So you didn't have valid passport? Is that what happened? Well, the petition itself is valid for 4 months under the rules, but the consul may extend it. I'm not sure what's happening there. All right. But was the visa issued already? What happened? It wouldn't be issued, I guess, if the passport was expiring. So, not really sure. I don't want to give you wrong information, right? Aha. Oh, it's expired while on administrative processing. Right. So you're going to receive a new passport and you're going to give it to the consulate. So that's what's going to happen, right? So it means they have not issued the visa yet, right? I think that's what happened. So you should be all right then if they haven't issued the visa yet. All right. Let's see if we have more questions. I'm going to answer one more question tonight. Hi, Alina, can you please tell us if a green card processing is paused, if it will affect I-730 applicants and how much time is taken nowadays? All right, Assad. So we received information that was later confirmed by the DHS. First information was spread by the news outlets that DHS stopped processing of the green cards for people who received asylum or received refugee status. We have no details whatsoever as to whether it was for every single refugee and asylee or for specific groups. Some people said that for those who entered through CBP1, it's not true. At least that was not specifically confirmed. Some people say, oh, it's from people from specific countries. Never heard of that officially. But there may be certain grounds that were not announced that are used by USCIS, sort of selection markers for whom this processing is stopped. But we do not know that. How long it's going to last for, we do not know. Whether it's going to affect I-730 petitions, I would say logically, yes. Why? The reason why they're stopping this, for two reasons. One is to determine, is to do the deep background checks. Then they confirm that. But second reason is to see if you may be disqualified for asylum status. Because a person who is no longer meeting the qualification for the refugee or asylee will not be able to get the green card. On my YouTube channel, I published a video explaining in a nutshell. There is a little bit more to it than in the video, but explaining in a nutshell when asylee may lose their status in the United States, when the government may terminate their status. So if somebody filed for asylum and the government is going to receive new instructions saying, not only you have to check if they're adjustable under the section 208 or 209 of INA, but also if they still meet the definition of the refugee, then instead of approval for your green card, you may receive a notice of intent to terminate your asylum status. If your asylum status is taken away, as you can imagine, you will not be able to adjust. I think that's why they're doing it. That would be logical to assume that. You understand? Because asylum is like what they call a pipeline. Many people receive asylum and then they get green card and then they get citizenship. Well, how to stop it, how to break this pattern? Well, they have to show that it's very hard to qualify for green card because your definition of asylee will be reassessed at that point. Law allows that. The law allows that. It's always been the case. It's only that USCIS has not been practicing it regularly, this particular approach to the green card filed by asylees or refugees. That's all. So when it's going to stop? I don't know. I would say in a couple of months when they're going to announce official new approach, then we're going to see what's going to happen. Well, guys, thank you very much for joining me tonight. Please don't forget to like and share the stream, and don't forget to follow me on social media. I hold these lives twice a week, usually Tuesday nights and Friday nights. And if everything goes well, we're going to see each other again this coming Friday night. Stay well, stay updated, stay optimistic, and I hope to see you soon.